Well, hello, we're back again with Cook with a Doc. Today we're here with Dr. Lawton and Maddie from Johns Hopkins. How are you today? I'm Chef Tia, by the way. How are you guys today?
Great.
Good, yeah.
Today we're going to be making a vegetable frittata and a fruit salad. I'm excited. I love frittatas. And I hear that you are the chef in the family. You're the doctor and you're the chef.
That's right.
Awesome. So I can't wait to see your chopping skills. But if you don't have them, we're going to work on them anyway. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off by chopping up some spinach, and we'll talk about the onion, mushrooms, we have garlic, and we also have peppers to go in our frittata. So starting off, only because it's the most cumbersome, I'm going to start off with my spinach. It's already been washed and dried for you. The biggest thing with your leafy veggies, when you need to chop them, whether it's veggies or herbs, you have to make sure that they're dry. If they're not dry, they'll stick to the cutting board, they'll stick to the knife, and it'll be annoying. You'll always be trying to push it off the knife or trying to get it up off the cutting board. And when you start to cut them anyway, it's going to kind of get a little wet because we're breaking the membranes in them. So the idea is, in my opinion, when I eat frittatas, when I take a forkful, I don't like a whole bunch hanging over, so I kind of cut my stuff smaller. That's just me. But I hate when I'm at a restaurant and you try to eat something and stuff is falling out and hanging off the fork. So I tend to just put it all in a pile and just chop it just a little bit smaller. And what I didn't say is how we hold our knives. You pinch the blade, remaining fingers go around the handle. When we do this, for this spinach, it's not that much difficult, but if we're cutting something harder like this onion or a melon, your wrist guides where your knife goes. If you hold your knife like this, you don't have control over it. Definitely you don't have control over it if you hold it like this. So ideally, you want to pinch it and the remaining fingers go around the blade. And then the motion that we do is a kind of a rocking motion.
This is different than the way I hold a knife.
It's different, and it is different, but once you get used to it, you'd be surprised how much more efficient you are. I tell everybody I went to culinary school not to learn how to cook, but to be more efficient and to learn the business part of it, because I've been cooking since I was 10. My granny taught me how to cook, and she was a great cook. However, she would be in the kitchen all day. That's not my favorite thing. I love to cook, but not necessarily be in the kitchen all day. What is it that you do at Hopkins?
At Johns Hopkins, I'm an adult heart surgeon. So I operate on people that have blockages in the coronary arteries or abnormal valves that are narrowed or leaking or tears in the aorta. And for the people that have blockages in the blood vessels of the heart, it's really important to eat a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet like we're making today.
Which is this?
We're going to be doing vegetables, fruit, all great.
Vegetables.
And
Yes.
and you will not see us adding salt to the food.
No, you will not. We don't need it. It's going to have plenty of flavor. And the only salt, I believe, is going to be coming from the cheese. Cheese does have salt, just in the process of how it's made. But we're not adding any additional salt. So our next thing we're going to do is our onion. And I know most people will sit there over a trash can and just peel all the skin off. But it's easier if you start to cut it first. And what I like to do, all onions are made the same. This is the sprout end, this is the root end, right? The idea is to keep the root end on because we're going to dice this. And I'm going to show you guys how to dice it to be efficient and get out of the kitchen. I'm going to cut a little bit of the sprout end off first. And then we lay that down flat. And we're going to cut directly through the root by cutting the onion in half. And then from there, we can just peel off the layer. And it's a lot easier to peel. And you don't spend as much time trying to get off that little thin layer.
And what about the eyes watering?
That's going to happen. You want to know? And let me tell you why. It would be great if it didn't. But when you cut onions, the mist that comes up, it's called sulfonic acid. And when it mixes with water, well, the mist is not sulfonic. When it mixes with water, it becomes sulfonic acid, and that's what burns your eyes. So in culinary school, I asked that very question, and my teacher said to cut faster.
Oh, okay. Good.
That's not going to help. I have heard there are onion goggles you can buy if it really bothers you. They sell those in kitchen stores. The onion goggles, you can probably get some online too. But ideally, sometimes if you put them in the refrigerator, that will help. And I'm sorry, let me stop.
Okay.
So if looking at the onion, we have lines on the onion, right? We're going to use those lines on the onion, and we're going to use the tip of the knife and just kind of, depending on how small you want your onions to be, right? Depending on how small you want them to be, you put them closer together. If you want bigger chunks of onion, you spread it out. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And you basically just follow along the onion on those lines. I call these strategic cuts. I think I have another layer to get off. And I want everybody to know, if you hear me sniffling, it's because I have allergies. I'm not sick, I promise. I suffer terribly with allergies.
This is the time of year.
It is, it's awful. Okay, there we go. So once you do those first set of cuts, excuse me, the next set, keeping our eyes on our onion, we're gonna go horizontal. And because we don't need that much onion, I'm only gonna go halfway. And I'm gonna do 2. Again, the more cuts you put in your onion, the smaller your onion pieces will be.
Do we want small pieces for a frittata?
It's up to you.
I thought you were going to say I was crazy for asking.
It's up to you. No way. And I will say this, like my granddad liked onions, he would eat onions. So he would like big chunks of onion. I don't. My kid didn't, so I got in the habit of cutting them really, really small. So our next set of cuts, we did the horizontal. The last set is going to be straight up and down, and you'll wind up with your diced. And again, the closer together you put your cuts, the smaller your onion pieces will be. If you want bigger chunks of onion, you spread them out. And this is a way for you to dice your onion instead of cutting it and then chop, 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 chop. So the closer you put them together, the smaller your onion pieces will be. I'm just going to move those over to the side as well.
Kind of like the opposite of Minecraft.
The opposite of Minecraft. I think I want to. And if you run out of lines and you need to make some more, because people always ask me what do I do with the rest of the onion, just start the process over. And I feel like I want a little more onion than what I have. The recipe itself calls for a half of a cup, but depends on what you like.
I don't see we have any measuring cups here, so is this going to be like eyeball?
Today we're going to eyeball. However, if you would like a measuring cup, I do have them. For me, like savory cook, this is what we call savory cooking instead of baking, is forgiving. Like if you really, really like onions, you can add more onions. If you can't stand mushrooms, just don't put mushrooms in it. You know what I mean? It can be forgiving. So if you really like onions, you can add more onions.
That's probably important for people to hear that are watching. Like if you're 2 cups, it's okay.
Right. If that's what you really like, you'll have an onion frittata more than anything. The next thing we're going to work on is going to be our mushrooms. And if you notice, we didn't take the knife and run and wash it off. Everything is going in our frittata. So I know sometimes people ask that, don't we have to wash it in between? The only time you have to wash your utensils in between is if you're going from your produce to a protein, like your eggs or your meat. Cutting different types of things.
And why is that?
Cross-contamination, raw meat and produce. Produce is considered, after you wash it, produce is considered ready to eat foods, and you should not eat anything or have any raw meat next to anything that's ready to eat, even though we're cooking this some more. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing is to not cross-contaminate. What we don't want to get is food poisoning. So, and as far as your mushrooms, you can dice them, you can cut them. If you like them big, you can leave them big. I just like mine diced up. And I'm just basically making them just a little bit smaller. Because again, I like for everything to fit on a fork. Same thing when I'm making soup. I tend to make my things smaller because eating soup with a soup spoon and stuff hanging over the spoon kind of drives me a little nuts.
These knives are great.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, to say that you should always make sure your knives are sharp, because you will cut yourself with a dull knife faster than you will with a sharp knife. So if your knife is very dull, you have to push a lot harder. And typically when you're pushing harder, you're going to cut the hand that you're not cutting with or that you're not holding the knife with. The other thing I want to tell you guys too, we're going to have a lot of things on our cutting board. And as you start to scoot things over, you should always use the back of your knife. And the reason being, if you use the cut edge, it makes your knife dull. The idea is to keep a sharp edge on your knife for as long as possible. And if you guys have, you have that long pole looking thing that comes in all knife sets, the honing steel. Most people think that makes your knife sharp. It does not. If your knife is dull, you'll make a whole lot of noise on the honing steel and your knife will be just as dull as it was before you started. When you that honing steel gives your knife a sharp edge, meaning every time we cut down on here microscopically, your knife tends to bend out, right? You can't tell, and you get what they call burrs on it, and that honing steel gets rid of those so that it gives you the illusion that it's sharper. But it's like kind of rubbing off the little burrs that happen on your knife. Fun fact, it's an illusion. It does not make it any sharper than it was before. So if someone ever tells you go sharpen that knife, get that steel, let them know it's not making it sharp at all. So far we have our spinach cut up, we have our onion cut up. For the pepper, you guys cut one and I'll cut the other. For peppers, I'll start with this, or if you want me to take the small one, I can take the small one, make it easier. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So for peppers, what I like to do with peppers, to make it easier, and I'm a chef, so I like my food to be pretty. Don't judge. Cut off the top half and the bottom half so that you get straight sides. So if you want to julienne some peppers, you don't have the curled edges. That's really the only reason why you cut them off. And these parts I save for things like spaghetti, where I don't really care how it looks. If it's chopped up, spaghetti, chili, things like that, I'll save these. I put them in the freezer. And it doesn't matter if they're crunchy either because they're going to get cooked. So I always save these. I never throw them away.
They're beautiful. I would stick this in some ranch
And
dressing
just
and
eat
eat
it.
it.
My kid eats peppers too. So yeah, they definitely would.
And if somebody is watching this and doesn't like one of these ingredients, are there other heart-healthy things? Like say your grocery store doesn't have fresh spinach.
You can use frozen. Also, if you don't have fresh mushrooms in your grocery store, you can get the canned mushrooms, but you have to rinse them. You would have to rinse them and know that the texture would be a little different. It's going to be a little softer. So what I did not show you guys is this white part, the rib of the pepper. In hot peppers, it's spicy, right? Anything that sits next to the seeds would be spicy. In sweet peppers, which these are, bell peppers, they're kind of bitter. And this dilutes your flavor because it has a lot of water. So all I'm doing is just going through and cutting that out. We want all the flavor. We want none of it diluted. And what I'm going to do is to give you guys half of this, or you can cut it up, and then you give me half of the green. And that way we'll both have green and red. That works. Thank you. Same thing, we're going to dice this. And depending on how efficient you want to be, you can sometimes stack them, but you don't have to. I usually cut them in strips first, and then from the strips, we go across the strips and dice them.
And it's squirting.
Yeah.
They're fresh.
They're fresh. They're nice and fresh.
And so for the frittata, the egg with the flour will make sort of the substance, and this will
Yes,
just
to hold everything together.
This will just like be mixed in and delicious.
Yes, and similar to omelets, and I don't know if you guys make omelets at home, you should definitely saute your veggies first. Reason being, if you do not, notice how you said it squirt because it was a lot of moisture inside of it. When you start to cook, more moisture comes out. And if you don't cook your veggies first, your eggs won't set. So you'll have a runny frittata, you'll have a runny omelet. So always cook your veggies first to get rid of some of that moisture so that when you put your eggs in, they'll set. You'll actually have an omelet.
Is that what we're going to do today?
That's what we're going to do today.
So we won't forget it.
Let me do my red and green peppers here. So what made you want to be the chef of the house? You just really like to cook?
Yeah, I don't know. I've just kind of always really liked it. More specifically, I guess, like baking. Always been really interested in it. And I guess, like, there's kind of a creative aspect with it, too. And kind of how you were saying you like your food to be pretty and that. And then also, I guess, specifically baking, like cake decorating or cupcake decorating.
Okay.
Just always been really enjoyable for me.
And it's relaxing, isn't it? Yeah. I don't care what's going on in the world. I could be in the kitchen and I'll just start cooking something, or I'll just start opening up cabinets, and whatever's wrong in the world, if I'm in the kitchen, I don't know, it's relaxing for me. Yeah. So I get it. All right, guys. The last thing we have is our garlic. So the recipe calls for 1 clove of garlic, but I rarely like garlic.
Me too.
So you notice there's a papery outer covering on it. And because we are going to cut this garlic up really fine, the best way to do it is to smash it. Make sure your knife is, the sharp edge is facing away from you, and just smash. If you're ever angry with someone, just get a whole bunch of garlic and peel it.
Ah, look at that.
And it comes right out. And then from there, we just dice it up. This is one of those things where you're gonna just walk your knife over it and chop it up. There's also a lot of gadgets. A lot of people ask me about a garlic press. The only issue for me with a garlic press is sometimes they hold bacteria. So I prefer to either chop my garlic, or my kid got it for me one year from a home and garden show. It's a plate, and the inside of it has these ridges, and it's a garlic crusher, garlic mincer. And when you scrape it across there, you wind up with minced garlic, and it takes seconds. It's the best thing ever. Outside of that, I just chop it up. Only because of the press. It's kind of hard to get the garlic out of the little holes. And that's where the bacteria stands or will start to grow.
I think one of the barriers to making healthy, fresh food is time.
Time.
And look at this, watch this. And what you said is it's relaxing. So if it could not only be your relaxation
And healthy.
after work and also healthy to eat, that would be great. So
It makes it better.
yeah.
Right? A lot of times for me, I think it's fun when my kid comes in the kitchen and cooks for me or cooks with me. For me is even better, but
Did you hear that?
I definitely love when they come in the kitchen or they say, hey, I'll make dinner. My kid's, 15?
Wow.
And I think they may cook more because I cook all the time. So sometimes, even in here, there's like tapes of my kid like standing on a stool, helping me with the class. So it's pretty good. I say we start kids cooking early as possible. And hopefully they'll love it and won't be a chore. Because I know a lot of people that I work with, they say that cooking is such a chore. And I'm like, it's so much fun. What do you mean? So everybody's different. All right. We are momentarily going to start cooking. We're going to saute our onions first. Then we're going to add our spinach and our mushrooms. Now, as far as the order that you put this in, for me, because I really like mushrooms, but I like my mushrooms cooked well. So more than likely, I'll put my mushrooms in first, then my onions, then my spinach, only because I like my spinach. Ooh, sorry, it's a fly. I like my mushrooms really cooked. Personal preference. Outside of that, that would be the only thing that I would do different than the recipe. So before we start cooking anything, I want to crack our eggs. We both have 6 eggs. I know a lot of people try to find the corner to crack an egg, maybe. But if you are cracking eggs, it's better to crack them on a flat surface. They crack more evenly. So, if you don't want them to roll all over the place, because we're going to use this bowl, be nice to me. Okay. Crack them on a flat surface, and they tend to crack easier. You don't get shards.
Got a little shell in there.
Any shells?
Just a little piece.
Of course. See, that's why I can't do this.
We'll crack all 6 of our eggs.
I made a mess.
It's fine. I have a little mess too. It's fine. We're going to take our whisk. We're going to whisk these up. We want to whisk them until they're frothy. We want a lot of air in them, which is different than a quiche. Quiche, you want them to be a little more dense, so you don't whip them up as much.
And it's a little bit of exercise, right? Exercise is also heart healthy.
It is. Whipping up these eggs.
We could also do some like,
While you're doing it, yeah. I do. I dance and I sing. But that's here nor there. I hear songs all the time. So I'm always singing, I'm always dancing. Maybe I'm just happy. All right. So in here, I've already measured it out for you though. We have 2 tablespoons of wheat flour. We have a teaspoon of baking powder. And then we have like a quarter teaspoon of black pepper. And the reason we're adding this to our frittata, for one, it's going to help it puff up. And it's going to give it structure, the sides, and help it set faster. So we're just going to add this. It's only a little, only 2 tablespoons. But the thing about wheat flour, or any flour, mostly wheat flour, I won't say any flour, the more you mix, it develops gluten. And gluten is the thing that makes people's tummy mess up, but it also gives bread structure. So if you're making bread, we want the gluten. We want to beat it to death. But if we're making cakes, frittatas, we necessarily don't. So we just want to mix it until it's blended.
and I noticed no salt or butter yet.
No salt or butter. We're not even using butter, believe it or not.
Great.
We are going to use olive oil.
Olive oil, okay, great.
And we're going to use a spray, so we're not even using a lot.
A spray in the pan?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to coat the bottom of the pan so that, because the good thing about a frittata, we don't have to worry about flipping it.
Right.
So we do want it to come out the pan when it's done.
I know you're gonna, I'll watch you, or if you're gonna flip it.
Ideally, it's going to flip out of the pan. That's what we want. So we're going to use a non-stick.
I like that word, ideally.
Ideally. I always say that in the kitchen because you never know. Even for me, sometimes things, I'm like, that's not what I expected. That is not what I was going for.
But you can always say,
But
it looks perfect.
It's trial and error.
Even if
But
it's
that's
not.
how you learn how to do things. Same thing, I was talking to some other people about how to, when you saute, how to flip things in the pan. I said the best way to learn how to do that is to get some rice and put it in the dry pan and just walk around flipping it. I said, that's how you learn. I said, now you may have rice all over the floor, but you can at least sweep that up and it won't make that much of a mess. Then you trying to do it with actual food, and that gets everywhere with the oil and everything else. So, you ready? All right. So, with this frittata, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start over here. We're going to turn this on to like maybe a medium heat. We don't want it super high. And that could be yours.
Go ahead. No, you're going to do it. I'm going to watch you.
You're going to watch? It's going to be me and Maddie cooking today.
I use the back burner.
You can use the front one.
Okay.
That's fine.
Is it this?
Yes, it should be. So, first thing we're going to put in is going to be our onions. And honestly, had I been thinking, I probably would have put these in smaller containers. It's going to be fine.
So onions so that it will flavor up everything else? Yeah.
Yes. Onions first, because they, out of what we have, probably have the most moisture. And then the peppers. And typically when I'm cooking anything, I usually cook my peppers and onions together. And you really just want to cook these until they become what they call translucent, kind of like the shower door. Not completely clear, but kind of almost see through it. That's what you're looking for.
Smells good.
Yeah.
Just with the onions, right? But yeah, the idea is to make sure that you get a lot of your moisture out of your produce so that when you go to cook the frittata, it'll set.
So no salt, no butter, no oil,
salt, no butter,
just
no
olive oil.
Just all this loveliness. Produce. Same thing with the omelets. You could do omelets the same way. You just have to make sure you have a nonstick pan, because without the nonstick pan, it makes it a little difficult to get the omelet out or to flip it.
And would you use olive oil for an omelet too?
You can.
Yeah.
Olive
Smells
oil
great.
Is pretty versatile. I'm gonna go ahead and add my peppers. The biggest thing is to make sure you add your garlic last. If you put your garlic in too soon, that burns. And burnt garlic is a flavor you cannot recover from if you've ever had it.
What does it taste like when you burn it?
Oh, it's a signature flavor. It doesn't taste like anything else.
Signature.
It's like, that's burnt garlic. Doesn't taste like, you know, you say, oh, that kind of tastes like chicken. No, burnt garlic is a flavor all its own.
You would think burnt garlic would be delicious. No.
And it's like if you've never had it, you don't want it. It's like one of those flavors you can't get out your mouth. It's like, oh.
Okay. Keep that in mind.
Oh, I don't want that. And if you feel like your heat is down low, typically at home I crank mine up. Again, I like to be out of the kitchen.
And by turning up the heat, it cooks it faster. And
Cooks it faster, but it's one of those things, if you are cooking it faster, you have to stand over top of it and make sure that it's not burning. So I would never say turn it up and then walk away and go get something else. You have to make sure you have everything with you.
You want some green peppers?
Yes, we want it to be colorful. Yeah, you want those onions too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
the
goes in.
more onions, the better.
Just avoid the garlic.
Yes. And once your veggies start to get soft, at that point you can start adding your mushrooms and your spinach. Because if you see my onions are starting to get almost translucent, when they get to that point, you can add in your spinach. The spinach will wilt. I think I'm gonna do my mushrooms next because I do like them to cook a little bit longer.
And is there anything you could leave out of this recipe if you didn't like it, or replace it with something? Like if you didn't like mushrooms, would you add something different?
Me, I would take them out. Like for me specifically, a lot of things call for tomatoes. I'm allergic. I can't have them. So I tend to leave them out. Like salsas, I'll do something different. I'll do a corn salsa. I'll do fruit salsas because I can't really do the tomatoes without having a terrible reaction. So when I was younger, I would still eat pizza and then take a Benadryl. That's not the answer.
Oh, that's funny.
That is not the answer.
And would you put tomatoes in this recipe? Or,
You can,
or
definitely. Tomatoes
corn?
would- for sure. Any veggie that you like. I love corn. Corn is one of my favorites.
And what if like a frittata says to you like breakfast? And a lot of people like bacon. Would you say turkey bacon would be best?
Turkey bacon, turkey sausage. They even have the chicken andouille sausage if you want it spicy. So it doesn't have to be pork. The things that you like to go with your breakfast would be something that I would add in. If you wanted turkey bacon, add turkey bacon. But remember the salt in that. Right. You gotta be mindful of what you're putting in it because turkey bacon has a lot of salt. It doesn't have the fat, but it does have the salt.
Mm-hmm. Especially if someone has high blood pressure.
Right. So you do have to be mindful of those things. And if you feel like your pan is kind of dry, you need a little more oil because we're using the spray, just add a little bit more in the center.
You want much of it?
Sure.
And is there this usually takes this part 10 minutes?
About 10 minutes. I would just eat this, to be honest with you. Without the frittata. Without the egg, I would just eat this.
So
I like veggies.
And we're going to use the whole egg, which is, I guess,
yes.
less.
But if you're sensitive to that, and like my mom never ate whole eggs, she only ate egg whites. So you can use definitely egg whites. You can use egg beaters. You don't have to use a whole egg for that.
Is there anything you would change about the ingredients that we added to thicken it if you used an egg white?
Well, egg whites actually are a thickener. They're the thickeners. The lecithin in the egg whites, it what thickens things. So probably not. The yolk is where the fat is. So, and I think what my mom would do, she would take the white of the egg and then take like a little teaspoon or a measuring spoon, like the quarter teaspoon, and then put a dot in there so it wouldn't be white. So she would feel like she's eating the same kind of eggs as everybody else. Whatever works. I wouldn't be surprised if my mom wouldn't find some yellow food coloring to put in there so it looks like everybody else's egg. She was definitely creative that way. And with your spinach, you're just kind of looking for it to wilt, get soft.
And that when that's in the frittata, it'll just be like a little extra flavor, the spinach.
Yep. And you're adding green.
Anything green?
Yep. You're just adding green. You could do spinach. You can chop up some kale really fine. I will say kale, you might want to start that off sooner than we did the spinach. It takes a little bit longer for it to cook and for it to wilt down. Collards, same thing. Chop those up. I've done those even sometimes with a hash. I'll add spinach. And I do sweet potatoes. So you don't even have to add a lot. You don't have to add sugar or anything. I just cut up the sweet potatoes. And like you said, with like the veggies, cut the veggies up in it, stick them in the oven, or if I put them on top of the stove, I learned this from American Heart actually, believe it or not. Started off with a little bit of water in the pan, and as it starts to cook, it boils the potatoes, and then the water gets soaked up by the potatoes, and then you wind up starting to fry it, and you get like this nice crust on the bottom.
Ooh, wow.
You gotta try that. And do it with sweet potatoes.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
And some people may say, well, what about cheese?
Yes, cheese is where we're gonna add our salt for today. That is going to be our salt.
Oh, right, I forgot we have the mozzarella.
Yes. We're gonna put like a 1/3 cup in here.
And so to be heart healthy, would you recommend using like low-fat cheese or lose the flavor?
So it's not so much the fat, because we do have the low-fat cheese. It's when the process of making cheese, it goes in salted boiling water. So if you didn't put it in there, you wouldn't like to eat the cheese. I mean, there's lower sodium versions, and we're gonna add our garlic last. And the trick with garlic, as soon as you start to smell it, becomes fragrant.
Time to stop cooking
It's
it.
time to start adding other ingredients.
Oh yeah, extra garlic for sure.
All the garlic. And Maddie, just be careful. These handles get really hot, so you need the. That looks really good. That looks delicious. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to add a little more oil because I have to put my eggs in here, and I don't necessarily want them to stick. So I'm going to spray yours a little bit.
You don't want what to stick?
The egg.
Ah, okay.
Even
got
though
it.
it's a non-stick pan, it does need some oil to keep from sticking. So we have our eggs. We're just going to pour this on top. Now for this, Maddie, we do have to make sure this is on medium because we don't want the eggs to cook but so fast or too fast. Similar to starting off like an omelet.
That looks amazing, doesn't it?
The biggest thing you want to do before it all starts to set up is to make sure you have your veggies spread out, and they should be. If you notice that the bottom is starting to set already, we don't have a lot of eggs either. So we are both going to take some of, and we're going to guesstimate, we're going to both use out of this, about a 1/3 cup. That right there is about a 1/4 cup.
So a 1/3 cup on top of each. Okay.
Yes.
And other than mozzarella, what else could you use?
I would use any kind of lower fat skim milk. That's one of the ones that you can make skim, the mozzarella. Hard cheeses are notoriously saltier, like Parmesan, Reggiano. The cheeses that are aged usually are saltier because the salt has nowhere to go. So, ideally, you want to make sure all of our cheese, like with macaroni and cheese, if you ever made that, you want to make sure that your cheese is covered because if it's not, when we put it in the oven, it'll burn. We don't want that.
Ah, and then the skillet goes in the oven.
The whole skillet goes in the oven. I'll wait till you get down, George. And you notice how the sides are starting to set? Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking for. We want the sides to set so that when we put it in the oven, all it has to cook is the middle. Cool. And you got your cheese in? Mm-hmm. All right, so we're ready to put this in the oven. We're just going to slide it on the top shelf. You put yours on one side, I'll put mine on the other. We'll slide those in. Make sure we turn these off. And then we'll check on those in like 2 to 3 minutes. It shouldn't take long because we put it on broil, by the way. If we had put it on bake, it would take a little bit longer, but we put it on broil, so we got to keep our eyes on it so we don't burn it up. And because we were dealing with raw eggs, I would say that we'll take a break real quick and wash our hands because the thing we get from chickens is salmonella. And same thing is present in the chicken will be present in the egg. So we're going to wash our hands real quick, clean up, and then we'll make our fruit salad. Hey, we are back and we're about to start making our fruit salad. Our frittatas are out of the oven. I can't wait to eat. This fruit salad should be quick. What I want to do is I want to start off, I did wash all the produce, ladies, by the way, first. I want to start off with basil. This is going to be a different, not your typical fruit salad, but it's going to be delicious. We need about 2, this is garnish. So what we want are just the leaves. And we're going to do what we call a chiffonade. All of the French terms are in the culinary world because a French chef wrote the first cookbook. That's why. So that's why your culinary terms are in French. So we're going to line our leaves up together. This particular cut is called a chiffonade. So I didn't say, but we learned a couple of things. We learned how to dice. We diced an onion. We chopped. We did rough chops on our mushrooms, and we did diced on our peppers. So I should be calling these things out. We are learning our actual terms. I didn't call them out. So from there, we're going to just kind of roll it as tight as you can. Lengthwise. Because we're going to go from there and cut very, very thinly across our rolled up. And the idea is to cut it thin. We want these to look like confetti shreds. This would be ideal. For your bigger leaves, when they ask you to cut it, typically if they ever ask for chiffonade, this is what they're talking about. Chiffonade. That is your chiffonade of basil.
Nice.
From there, and this is our garnish, so we're going to save that for last. I just wanted to cut that first because the leaves were dry, our cutting board was dry, and our knife was dry. And I wanted to make sure that when we started to cut, it wasn't sticking all over the place, right? So the next biggest task we have is peeling our orange. We're going to peel the orange because for today, we're just going to use, obviously, we can't eat the peel. That wouldn't be any fun. So we're going to peel it first, and then we're going to cut the sections.
And the basil and the orange smell amazing.
Together, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you guys do this, but sometimes at home, if you put in a pot your orange peels, some cloves, and different herbs, makes your whole house smell amazing. So sometimes if you have people coming over, you want them to think you cook a lot. Something you could do. It's a trick you can do. And for me, for fruit salads, I like to take off as much of the pith as I can because that's kind of bitter. In reality, what I would honestly do is take all the skin off, but I know there's nutrients in that, so we're trying to be healthy. But to make it pretty, I would normally cut that off. But I'm going to cut my orange in like 3 sections because these oranges are pretty big. All right. And as we cut
This is just perfect.
Okay, perfect. And depending on how much orange, do you really like orange? You can use the whole orange. If you don't, you can use half. And try to get as much of the white strings and the pith off as you can. They also don't look very nice in your salad as everything starts to come together. I told you guys I like my food to be pretty too. Very colorful. And ideally, whenever you're making a fruit salad, because what you'll notice is our berries, the berry mixture is frozen. We couldn't find fresh, the grocery store we went to, we didn't have fresh blueberries. We didn't have the fresh blackberries. And sometimes it's cheaper just to buy them frozen and then add them in. Because by the time you buy a pint of each one of them, you'll have like $1 million fruit salad. So sometimes it's more economical to buy them, or you can buy them in the can, well, not berries, but you can also buy canned fruit. Whatever fruit you like, if you like peaches, if you like oranges, melon, and think about what's in season too. Like in season right now are going to be your oranges and your strawberries. For a while I lived in Florida, and the best smell is strawberry season and orange season. Because you can smell, the orange flowers smell really good. And you can smell them everywhere. A not so great time in Florida is when the season is over and you have oranges everywhere, because as the trucks are rolling around, they roll off the trucks and they hit the ground. How you guys making out?
Not as nice as yours.
That is so not true. You guys, this looks perfect. For grapes, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but sometimes I've seen in different fruit salads where they cut the grapes. I personally like mine whole, but if you want to, you can cut your grapes. You can. I like mine whole. One thing will happen, unless you're going to eat your fruit salad today, the more you cut fruit, it starts to break down. So we put our grapes in. Next, we're going to finish up with our strawberries. And you can put as many strawberries as you like. We're going to cut off the green stems. And then depending on how big your strawberry is, you may have to cut it in quarters. You want to still know it's a strawberry in there, but if it's too big, like this is a really big strawberry, I may cut this maybe in little smaller pieces.
They look really ripe.
They are very ripe. And then the interesting thing is, if you can't get fresh, you can always get frozen. I don't know if I mentioned that to you guys. You can always get frozen. And when the frozen, you just have to be mindful that the frozen ones, the texture will be a little bit softer. But when you mix it with the fresh, you won't be able to really tell.
And when they're frozen, do they have a little bit of extra water that you have to get rid of, or?
They do have a little extra water, so I would drain it so that you don't put all of that extra liquid into your fruit salad. Again, diluting flavors. And I feel like that's enough strawberries for me. Once you get that, and because the frozen fruit is a little bit more delicate, I want to mix this up first and then add those so you can be a little more delicate with those. You notice there's a lot of juice at the bottom too, so try not to get that. And this has cherries, it has blackberries, it's got raspberries and a few strawberries, blueberries. We have a nice little mix.
And this was a frozen mix?
This was a frozen mix, a frozen bag. And you don't have to get a name brand. This was the store brand. And then we're just going to mix that.
And you just let it defrost at room temperature?
Just defrost at room temperature. Or if you want it frozen, it would keep everything else cold. If you put it in there frozen and you're going to set it out for a while, it'll help keep everything else cold. So the last thing I'm going to add is what I have in here is some olive oil and some balsamic vinegar. And that's just going to be our dressing to give it a nice little kick. We're going to add that in and mix that up. And then we have our fruit salad. Ideally, you want to put it in and let it sit for a little bit so that those flavors kind of marry and
yes,
get together. This should be good.
It smells good.
Doesn't it smell good? Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, if you have basil, you can add basil. If you have mint will also be good in here. So our last little piece de resistance is going to be our basil. And what I like about this is the basil and the balsamic really go well together. Mm-hmm. Smells good, right?
Stuff.
This is just a fruit salad. Smells really good. So the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to plate up our fruit salad and our frittata and enjoy. Okay, so we are back and we are done making our frittata and our fruit salad. So now all we have left is to plate it. You can plate it two ways. You can turn it upside down, which is what some people do. Just take their plate, put it over top and flip it, or you can slide it out, whatever works best. I think for today, I'm going to just slide this out because it's pretty small. If we had a bigger pan, honestly, I would say, and I just lift it under and scooted it out. Perfect.
Nice.
We'll put that back there. You notice how it puffed up? And then, that's a whole frittata. This would be a serving for a couple of us. We wouldn't eat this whole thing. And then as far as our fruit salad, what we can do is add that to the side just to make it, or I think I would like my fruit salad in a separate bowl, personally. So now what we're gonna do is just transfer our fruit salad because we're gonna have that on the side. And the beautiful thing about this is the family can cut up, if you cut it, the family can cut up and grab their slice. And then if you fill little bowls up with the fruit salad, they can have their fruit salad on the side. And then me personally, before I take it out, I would always slice it because people tend to make their own slice sizes in my house. So my kid would come with the big one and then we'd be left with little pieces. So depending on how many people you have in your family, you can cut it into fours, you can cut it into smaller pieces.
It cuts very easily.
It does. But I tend to like to cut it first because if I don't, no one gets even pieces and there will be a brouhaha. Best way to describe it. I can't wait to taste it. You guys tell me what you think. You ready?
Ready.
All right, what are we tasting first? Fruit salad or the frittata?
Fruit salad.
Fruit salad. I'm going in for the fruit salad myself.
Smells so good.
The balsamic smells really good.
And the basil.
And how much did you put in? Did you measure the balsamic?
The balsamic, I did 2 teaspoons of balsamic and 2 teaspoons of olive oil. And if you don't like balsamic, you can use orange juice, you can use lemon juice. You just need a little acidity to break the oil up and to bring all the flavors together. This is really good.
It's great. It's amazing what just the basil and the oil and vinegar does.
It gives you a different dimension to the fruit salad. It's not just regular cut up fruit. Are we ready to dig into this frittata?
Let's do it.
All right. I'm going for the biggest piece. As much as I talk about my kid, I do the same thing. I go for the biggest piece.
I'm making a mess.
And just think,
That's okay.
there's no salt except for the cheese.
You can really taste the onion
And the mushroom.
and the, it's delicious.
I have a lot of mushroom. Actually, that's really good.
What do you think?
All the flavors work so well together.
So would you make this at home, Maddie? Cool.
I
How
think
about
it's such a nice and easy dish. You can just
It's
whip it up
easy.
very quickly.
You can do this when you come home from school. You can probably do this in the morning before you go to school. It's quick enough, especially if you have everything already chopped up.
Yeah.
I don't like to miss breakfast. Can't speak for anybody else, but I'm not the nicest person if I skip breakfast. So this is something I can do rather quickly and easily. Most of the ingredients you should have at home. Most people keep eggs. You may need to get your fresh produce, and if you don't have fresh produce, always have canned goods. Make sure if you canned goods that you rinse them first because they are packed in sodium to keep them, preserve them. So, it's been great here with you guys, Dr. Lawton and Maddie.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. I enjoyed this. We have to do it again.
It was great. Thank you for teaching us so much.